And you have been lying to me.
I'm sorry.
You are evil.
I'm not evil. You know me. I take care of people. And I've even taken care of you. I'm not evil. I have a good heart.
Think about the woman you dubbed your guardian angel. She promised to get you out of poverty, but when you see her, she's just a stranger in a mask. The mask doesn't just slide, it blows up. Daniel finds out Lisa's darkest secret on 90 Day Fiancé tonight. It's not just a lie, it's a cultural and moral earthquake that makes him sick. But here's the twist that will make your jaw drop. He won't leave her even after calling her evil incarnate. Why? Because the green card is worth more than his soul. I'm Nancy, and in this deep dive called The Devil in the Details, a green card at any cost, we're going to talk about every horrible moment, every planned maneuver, and every lie that is still out there. Get ready for a terrible ride. Daniel came to Nigeria full of hope and dreams, sure that Lisa was his guardian angel, the woman who had come from across the ocean like a miracle worker. For months, she sent him money even when his family couldn't buy rice. She had whispered promises of a new life in America, a green card and relief from the grinding poverty that had defined every single day of his life. Daniel saw Lisa as more than simply a fiancé. She was his way out, his savior, and the only person who saw him when everyone else looked away. But when she finally spilled the beans, the whole fairy tale fell apart like glass under a hammer. The Messiah he had worshipped turned into a total stranger with a mask that had been painstakingly made. Lisa is still married after all these years, and she's married to a woman. In Daniel's very traditional society, this wasn't just a small mistake or a trivial detail. This was terrible. A moral earthquake that shook up all he thought he knew about love, marriage, and right and wrong. You could see it in his face when his whole future fell apart. His eyes grew wide with incredulity, and his body seemed to flinch as if her words had scorched him. The lady he had planned to spend the rest of his life with and defended to his suspicious family was suddenly someone whose very presence made him feel sick. The angel who was supposed to protect them was gone. A stranger stood in her place, and their secrets were so deep that they poisoned all they had ever shared. Daniel understood right then and there that things would never be the same again. When Lisa delivered the words, the room went completely silent. Daniel was leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, still holding on to that small thread of hope that whatever she was about to say would be something he could forgive. It could be an old debt, a child she hadn't mentioned, or even another man, not this. Then she said it. I'm still married to a woman. The statement hit me like a punch in the gut. You could see the color leave Daniel's face in real time. His eyes got bigger and bigger until the whites appeared all around the iris, and his pupils shrank to tiny dots of shock. His mouth opened a little, but at first no sound came out. Instead, he took a short, reflexive breath, like when something cold and sharp stabs you without warning. It looked like his body was trying to fold away from her since his shoulders were hunched forward. He jerked back on the couch, putting inches, then feet, then what felt like miles between them, even though they were still in the same small hotel room. His hands went up without thinking, palms out, not in fury yet, but in plain animal disgust, the global sign for, "Get that away from me." His face muscles all twisted. His face showed disgust, betrayal, terror, and something deeper, something that seemed almost like grief. Very quickly, his breathing got weak and uneven, and you could see his chest rising and falling too quickly, as if the air itself had grown dirty. He looked at her with the wide, unblinking stare of someone who had just confessed to wearing someone else's skin, not the sweet eyes of the guy who had declared her his future bride just a few hours before, the woman sitting across from him, the one whose texts he had read at 3 a.m., and whose voice had lulled him to sleep on difficult nights, was no longer the same. She was still talking, constantly attempting to explain, and still saying things like, "I was scared," and "I still love you," but to Daniel those words were simply noise, static. because at that point, touch was out of the question. In his imagination, the thought of him kissing her, holding her hand, planning their wedding, and dreaming of having kids all went sour and sickening. His stomach was clearly tight, and one hand was pressed tightly against his belly, as if he may throw up right there. He didn't yell, not yet. He just sat there, eyes focused on her, as his body pulled back more and more with each passing second. The quiet went on for so long that it hurt, and when he finally spoke, his voice was low, weak, and practically a whisper, but every syllable seemed like it was breaking something inside him forever. You made me believe." He couldn't finish what he was saying. He didn't have to. The angel who protected him was gone. What was left was a soul-crushing chasm where trust used to be, and in its place was pure, visceral dread at the stranger who had just destroyed his whole universe with 6 simple words. Daniel's reaction wasn't just pain for himself, it was the violent clash of 2 whole worlds. Daniel grew up in a culture where marriage is sacrosanct, binary, and can't be broken till death. A guy and a lady get married. A woman gets married to a man. There is no discussion, no nuance, and no different lifestyle about anything outside that line. It is wrong. It is a sin. It is wrong to God, family, community, and even the way things are supposed to be. When Daniel found out that the woman he wanted to marry had not only broken that sacred barrier once, but was still legally and emotionally tied to another woman, it felt like the ground had opened up beneath him and devoured everything he had ever been taught to hold sacred. His body language screamed what he had been taught since he was a child. This was contamination. He didn't pull away from Lisa because he was upset. He pulled away as if her confession was a spiritual poison that could get into him just by being close to her. Whenever she reached out to him, even only to touch his arm in a frantic attempt to explain, his whole body jerked violently, with his shoulders jerking back and his head snapping to the side like someone trying to avoid a snake. It wasn't a play. It was instinct. His eyes, which had been warm when he talked about her in earlier confessionals, were now steely and glassy with something like righteous anger. He looked at her like a man might look at someone who had just confessed to vandalizing his family's tomb. In his mind, she was confused. Times are changing and love is love didn't make sense. They were ideas from a faraway, godless realm. In his mind, this secret wasn't a personal failure. It was a serious breach of the moral cosmos. Daniel's lip curled in distaste when Lisa tried to make it sound less harsh by saying, "I was young. I was scared. I didn't know how to leave." Not angry yet, not yelling, but a deep, gut-wrenching disgust that made his nostrils flare and his jaw lock so tightly that the muscles stood out in cords along his neck. He didn't see her remarks as explanations. He saw them as pollution. Each one took away the pedestal he had put her on and replaced it with something dirty. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and shaking with the effort of keeping what wanted to come out of him inside. "Why did you let me touch you? How could you let me fantasize about you when you knew this?" The question hovered between them like smoke from a bridge that was on fire. He wasn't looking for an answer. He was saying something that couldn't happen. He thought that every kiss, promise, and plan they had made together was based on a falsehood so deep that it poisoned the past. There was never a real woman he loved. Instead, there was this other person, a stranger with a secret wife, who had let him fall in love without telling him the truth. The earthquake was more than simply emotional. It had to do with culture. It came from ancestors. It was religious. Daniel sat still in that small hotel room in Nigeria, with the ceiling fan clicking above him and the noise of the city outside the window muffled. He wrapped his arms over himself as if to keep the break inside his soul from getting out. Love and this reality could not be together. Not in his world. Never. For a long time, Lisa sat very motionless after Daniel's whispered query hung in the air. It was as if she thought that if she didn't move, the words would go back to being quiet. Then she took a quiet, deliberate breath, like someone who has practiced this speech 1,000 times in their head, and began to turn. I've been hiding for 20 years, she continued, her voice gentle but firm. She looked at a location just past his shoulder so she wouldn't have to see the disgust still burning in his stare. 20 years of pretending and being scared every day that someone would find out and everything would fall apart. Do you realize how that affects someone? It eats you up. Yes, I did hide it. From everyone. From my family, my friends, and you. And I'm not happy about it. But the fact that I'm sitting here right now, telling you the truth, that took more bravery than I've ever had. She leaned forward a little, with her palms wide on her lap like she was giving something. Please don't forget what I did. I want you to understand that being honest with you, of all people, is the largest step I've ever taken toward being a real person. Toward being someone who deserved the love you were giving me. Daniel's face didn't change. If anything, the distaste grew worse, making new lines around his mouth. He shook his head once, abruptly. The move was slight but full of rejection. Lisa kept going, not giving up, changing her approach like someone does when they feel the earth slipping away. I understand how this seems to you. I understand that your universe doesn't work the same way mine does. Love isn't about rules, boxes, or what other people feel is correct. Love is about who someone truly is, not who they pretend to be to stay alive. And underneath it all, I adore individuals for who they are. I loved you for who you are. That bit was never a lie. The final statement made her voice break, which was the first real sign of her cautious control breaking. She let a single tear fall down her cheek and didn't brush it away, like it was proof. I gave you money when you had none. I stayed very late at night talking to you about your worst days. When everyone else claimed it was impossible, I battled for us. That wasn't a lie. I was showing you my heart, and maybe my heart is broken in ways you can't understand, but it's okay. It's still good. She stretched out then, not to touch him, but to point to the ledger that only they could see. Look at all the things I've done for you. Take a look at the risk I made by bringing you here, signing paperwork and letting someone into my life who might hurt me if they chose to. I did that because I had faith in us. I still chose you, even though I had all my secrets. The space felt smaller and the air felt heavier. Lisa's statements were honest and almost begging, clothed in the soft language of self-acceptance and vulnerability that may have worked with a different man in a different conversation. But to Daniel, they sounded like insults that were wrapped up as apologies. She was downplaying, not simply the secret, but also how big it was for him. For 20 years, she hid the truth. It wasn't a mistake made by a young person or a way to stay alive. It was a planned lie that let her accept his love, his promises, and his body while wearing another woman's ring on her finger in every legal sense that mattered to him. And now she wanted others to know she had confessed. She wanted to get points for being bold. She wanted him to praise the destruction of the life he believed they were establishing together. Daniel's hands made fists on his thighs. He didn't stop her. He just sat there, letting her words build up like stones on a scale that was already tipped against her for good. When she finally stopped, hoping for some sign, any sign, that he had understood how vulnerable she was, he only looked at her with icy, faraway eyes. You think telling me now will make it better? His voice sounded low, almost like he was talking to someone, yet there was a harsh edge to it. You think saying, I was scared, makes it okay that you let me plan a future with a ghost? Lisa's shoulders drooped a little. The victim card she had played so well was starting to bend beneath the weight of his look. She had thought she would feel shock, maybe wrath, maybe tears, but not this solid, uncompromising wall of moral conviction. In her mind, being honest was the only way to become better. Honesty 20 years too late was just another way for him to feel betrayed. And so she sat there, her hands still open and tears still streaming, attempting one final time to change the story so that they might both keep living. But the master of minimizing had finally encountered someone who wouldn't let the truth be made smaller so it could be forgiven. Lisa's weeping had stopped, but her hands were shaking as she went for the small black purse on the coffee table between them. She slowly unzipped it, as if the act itself could give her a few more seconds of elegance. She took her phone out of her pocket, woke it up with her thumb, and started scrolling through screenshots that she had definitely made for this very moment. "Look," she murmured, her voice thick but firm. She moved the screen so he could see it. "This is the transfer from last October, when your mother was in the hospital. It was $300. And here, in December, another $450 so you could pay the rent and stay in your home. February, $200 more because you stated the power was going to be switched off. I never asked for anything in return. I never made you feel like you had to pay me back. I just did it. Because I cared. I couldn't tolerate the thought of you suffering, even though I was still too terrified to tell you everything." She swiped again. Another picture of the screen. Confirmations by wire, alerts from the bank. Each one had a date and time on it, and each one showed that money had traveled oceans to get to his account. "And this one," she said, her voice getting softer and more respectful. "This was the biggest. Last month it cost $800. That was so you could get the new phone you needed to get ready for the visa interview. To make it possible, I sold my grandmother's necklace. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to feel bad. I just wanted you to have what you needed to get here, to reach me." Daniel's eyes went to the television and then back again nearly right once, as if gazing at it for too long may hurt him. His jaw was so tight that a muscle under the skin trembled. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The quiet was louder than any yell. Lisa carefully put the phone down, the screen still glowing with proof of her kindness. She leaned forward until she was almost sitting on the edge of the cushion. "That money wasn't just cash, Daniel. It was love. It was giving up something. It was me putting you first when no one else had. You can detest me for keeping the secret. You can detest me because of the marriage. But you can't say I don't have a nice heart just because of those transfers. Someone with a good heart doesn't do those things for someone they don't really care about." She stopped and looked at his face for any evidence of a crack, a softening, or any other sign that the math of love might still work out in her favor. "I know I did something wrong. I know I lied by not saying anything for years, but look at what I offered instead of the truth. Check out the nights I went without so you could eat. Every time I paid you another payment, I was scared that this would be the one that made you leave if you ever found out. I put everything on the line to make something real with you. Isn't that worth anything?" Her voice went up a little, and now she was begging. Having a decent heart and a messy past don't mean you're enemies. People can have both of them. I'm not telling you to forget about the past. Please understand that the woman who sent you the money sobbed with you on the phone when your uncle died and dreamed of our wedding the same way you did is still here. She is still me, and she still loves you more than anything else. Daniel's fists were clenched on his knees. His knuckles had turned white. When he finally looked up and met her eyes, there was no warmth left in them. Instead, there was a cold, clear look that stabbed more than wrath ever could. "You think money can make falsehoods go away?" he inquired gently. The remarks were so mild that they nearly seemed kind, but they hit like stones. "You believe that because you paid money, the ring on your finger, which isn't mine, will go away? You think I can forget that every time you said, 'I love you,' another woman had a legal right to your life?" He leaned forward just enough for the space between them to feel full of aggression, even though neither of them moved to touch the other. "Money isn't love. Money makes everything easier. Money is a source of guilt. When words don't work anymore, you throw money. You paid for my flight. You bought my hope. You paid for my time. But you didn't buy my heart. And you definitely didn't buy forgiveness." Lisa's face crumbled. The phone dropped out of her hands and onto the couch. The flashing pictures faded as the screen timed out, leaving just the faint blue light that was reflected in her wet eyes. She brought invoices with her, attempting to show him how valuable she was in the only way she believed he might still care about. But in Daniel's world, no amount of money could wash away a betrayal so deep. He thought that a good heart didn't hide behind secret commitments to someone else, while getting affection from a man who had nothing left to give but faith. and confidence could not be bought back once it was broken, no matter how many zeros showed up in a bank alert. The stillness that came after Lisa's last plea was so heavy that it felt like it could choke you. Daniel sat there for what felt like forever, staring at the floor between his feet as if the poor motel carpet contained some secret solution. Then gently his right hand went up. He clasped his fingers over the thin silver band on his left ring finger. This was the engagement ring Lisa had chosen and sent to him months before. He had worn it every day since it arrived as a sign of the future they were meant to be constructing. He turned it once, then twice, and the weak light from the bulb caught the metal. He worked so hard that his knuckles turned white. The ring came off with a tiny, almost silent scrape on his skin. For a second, he held it between his thumb and forefinger and stared at it like it was something strange, like it was dirty. Then, all of a sudden, he threw it across the small gap between them with a lot of force. The ring hit Lisa's chest right below her collarbone with a faint metallic clink. It then bounced once on the cushion and fell to the floor. It rolled a few inches and then stopped on the coffee table leg, shining in the dim light as if to say, "You did this." Daniel was already up before the sound of it striking the floor stopped. His chest heaved, and his breaths came quickly and roughly, no longer held back. "You keep throwing up secrets," he continued, his voice low at first, but shaking with the pressure behind it, "one after the other. And every time I think I've eaten the last one, another one comes up. I can't—" His voice broke and rose. "That's it. I can't take it anymore." The words burst out of him like they had been scratching at his throat for hours. He took one step toward her, not menacing but close enough that she instinctively moved back against the couch. "I trusted you. I notified my family about you. When they alleged that an older white woman from America was using me, I spoke up for you. You let me into your life, your dreams, and everything else I had left, even though you were still married. To a woman. You wore that other ring in every courthouse in your country." His fists shot up, and his fingers spread wide in rage. "Do you know what that means for me? A stupid. A man who kissed a lie over the phone every night, who made plans to have kids with a ghost." Finally, hot, angry tears came out. They followed his cheeks, but he didn't wipe them away. He allowed them fall to show how deep the pain was. "And what's the worst part?" His voice lowered again, nearly to a whisper, yet it was sharper than any roar. "The worst part is that I still see the woman I loved in your face. I still remember the evenings when you made me laugh when I wanted to die. I still feel the hope you gave me when I had nothing, and now it's all bad. All of the memories, every word, every touch." He pointed at the ring on the floor without looking at it. "That thing, it doesn't mean anything now. Take it, keep it, put it in the garbage. I don't want anything to do with that or you touching me again." Lisa looked at the ring and then at him, her mouth wide but no words coming out. Her hands were uselessly in the air, stuck between reaching for him and keeping herself safe from the storm she had started. Daniel turned away, his shoulders stiff and his fists tight at his sides. He moved to the window and leaned his face against the cool glass. He looked out at the dark Lagos night, as if the city lights could somehow wash away the betrayal from his eyes. Lisa stayed still on the couch behind him, and the ring they had thrown away lay between them like a dead thing. This would have been the end of any other relationship. The ring was gone. The trust was gone. The love had turned into something that looked nothing like love. But this wasn't like any previous relationship. This was the show 90 Day Fiancé. And somehow, the narrative wasn't over yet. The night was broken up into fragments. Daniel stayed at the window until the city lights turned into streaks. Then he finally sat down on the little couch across the room with his back to the bed, where Lisa snuggled up under the thin blanket. They didn't talk again. The air between them had gotten thicker, like something solid that pushed against their lungs with every breath. The morning was gray and heavy. Daniel was the first to wake up. His eyes were red and he was staring at the ceiling as if answers were written there. For a long time he didn't move. When he finally got up, the first thing he did was look at the ring that had been thrown away, and was still sitting against the leg of the coffee table. He didn't take it. He just stared until his face turned cold, like anger, but more like determination. Lisa moved, sat up slowly, and her hair was a mess and her face was swollen from crying. She looked at him with weak hope, the kind that knows it's probably already dead but can't help but flicker. She said softly, "You're still here." It wasn't really a question. It was more of a small, desperate observation. Daniel didn't answer right away. He rubbed his palms over his face, breathed through his nose, and then finally looked her in the eye. He said again, "I'm still here." The words came out flat and on purpose. For now. The quiet went on for a long time. Then he said what neither of them had the guts to say out loud the night before. "I said you were bad last night. I really meant it. I still feel it in my stomach when I see you. The idea of what you hid and what you let me think makes me sick. It makes me want to leave this room and never see you again." Lisa flinched, but she didn't say anything. Now she knew better. "But I'm not going," he said again. "Not today. Not tomorrow. Not until I get what I came for." He leaned forward with his elbows on his knees and his hands clasped so tightly that the veins in his forearms stood out. "I talked to you for 2 years. 2 years of texts, calls, and promises. For 2 years, I told my mother, uncle, and cousins that this was real, that you were different, and that you were going to change everything. I sold what little I had to get the papers going. I asked for favors. I put aside pride that I didn't even know I had. Everything for a green card, for a chance to breathe somewhere that doesn't smell like dust and hunger every day." His eyes never left. "Yes, I hate who you are. What you did makes me angry. I hate that your lie has ruined every memory I have of us. But hate doesn't pay for tickets home. Hate doesn't put food on the table for my family. Hate doesn't give me the chance to live a life where I don't wake up every day wondering if today is the day we lose the house." Then he got up, slowly and carefully, like a man coming back to life after digging his own grave. "I will finish this process. I will go to the job interviews. When they ask about our future, I'll smile. I'll sign any papers they give me. When I get that green card and step off the plane in America, we're done. You will be free. I'll have mine. And whatever this was, it stops here." Lisa's lips moved, but at first no sound came out. When she finally did speak, her voice was weak and broken. "You're saying you'll stay just for the visa." Daniel stared at her for a long time, really looked as if he were trying to remember the exact shape of the woman he used to love, but now couldn't stand to be near. "I'm saying that right now, the green card is worth more than my pride, more than how much I hate it, more than the part of me that wants to leave and never come back. That's the truth you didn't see coming. That's the deal we're both making right now." He turned toward the bathroom, stopping only long enough to say one last quiet thing over his shoulder. "Don't get this mixed up with forgiveness. Don't think of it as love. This is how to stay alive, that's all." The door to the bathroom clicked shut behind him. Lisa stayed in bed, staring at the empty space where he had been. The ring was still on the floor, like evidence of a crime that neither of them could escape. Outside, Lagos woke up around them, with horns honking, voices rising, and life going on, whether they liked it or not. In that small, stuffy room, 2 people who had once dreamed of being together forever, now only had one unspoken agreement. The visa came first. The heart, the soul, and the truth would all have to wait their turn, or die trying. The thin hotel curtains let in some morning light, but it didn't make the room feel any softer. Daniel had slept on the couch, curled up awkwardly with one arm hanging off the side, as if he didn't want to share the same space as the bed even when he was asleep. Lisa hadn't slept much at all. Her eyes were puffy and red around the edges, and she moved like she was carrying an invisible weight. They packed up in almost complete silence. The zippers on the suitcases were closed, gathered toiletries. The engagement ring stayed on the floor where it had fallen the night before. No one picked it up or said anything about it. Daniel picked up his bag and walked to the door without saying a word when it was time to leave. Lisa followed a step behind, holding her purse like a shield. The sky was the color of old steel when we started driving to Lagos. The driver, a quiet man who had driven them before, kept the radio low. There were some faint Afrobeats playing under the sound of tires on an uneven road. Daniel was in the front passenger seat and was looking straight ahead through the windshield. Lisa was alone in the back, leaning against the door as if she were trying to make herself smaller. No one talked for the first hour. The landscape rolled by. Vendors on the side of the road balancing trays of plantains, kids in bright uniforms walking to school, and motorbikes weaving through traffic with ease. Life went on outside the car, ignoring the wreckage inside. In the end, Daniel spoke up. His voice was calm, too calm, like someone who has made up his mind about how much emotion he will let himself feel. "I want to forgive you," he said, still looking at the road. "I've been sitting here all night and thinking about it, praying about it, telling myself that I might be able to let it go if I work hard enough, that people do things wrong, that God forgives worse things." Lisa's breath stopped. She leaned forward a little, and hope flickered like a match in the wind. "But I can't," he said again, still not looking at her. "Not really. Not the way you want it. I see you with her every time I close my eyes. I can see the papers you signed. I see the life you lived while you promised me forever. And it makes me sick to my stomach. It makes me feel sick in a way I can't put into words." He stopped for a moment, his fingers tightening on the seatbelt strap across his chest. "So this is what I can do. I can keep going. I can sit next to you at the embassy. I can tell them how we met, how we fell in love, and how we're going to build a life together. I can act the part, because I need this visa more than I need to be right, more than I need to be clean. I need to leave with my pride intact." Lisa gulped hard. "Daniel?" He finally turned his head enough to see her in the rearview mirror. His eyes were flat and empty, with no warmth in them like there used to be. "Don't," he said in a low voice. "Don't say my name like that. Like we're still the same people we were last week. No, we're not. We're now partners in business. That's it. You can keep your secrets hidden for a little longer. I can now set foot on American soil. We go our separate ways when it's done. No drama, no fighting. Just finished." The car hit a pothole, and both of them jerked. Lisa pressed her lips together, and tears came to her eyes again but didn't fall. She nodded once, small and defeated. Daniel turned around and looked at the road. The anger between them was like exhaust fumes, thick and hard to ignore, but neither of them said anything about it anymore. They rode in that uneasy truce, two strangers connected by paperwork, ambition, and the slow poison of betrayal. Outside, Lagos got closer. It was big, messy, full of noise, color, and possibility. Inside the car, the future they had once dreamed of together had shrunk to a single cold goal: get through the interviews, get the stamp, and win the prize. And when that was over, the rest of them would blow away like dust in the wind. The road kept going. The city was patient. And between hope and calculation, the darkness grew deeper with each mile that passed. So here we are, at the end of the road, or at least the end of this hard part. Daniel and Lisa drive to Lagos in a car that is full of silence and unspoken thoughts. He has said it out loud. He will stay, play the part, sign the papers, and smile for the cameras at the embassy. Not because love lived on, not because forgiveness won, but the green card is the only prize that is still worth claiming. The question that everyone is asking themselves tonight is simple and cruel. Is Daniel really forgiving Lisa, or is he just pretending to forgive her until he gets his visa? He calls it staying alive. She might still think of it as love, but no matter what name they give it, the truth is colder. Two people who used to want to be together forever have turned their whole relationship into a single, business-like goal. Get the card, leave, get out. And when that stamp hits the page, when Daniel finally sets foot on American soil and the door of the plane closes behind him, what will happen to them? A clean break? Still angry? Or are they just two strangers who once had the same desperate dream and are now going in completely different directions? That's the dark part of this story, not the secret itself, not even the lie. It's what people are willing to take, what they're willing to pretend, and what parts of their souls they're willing to give up when the only other option is to stay where they are. So what do you think? Is it worth it to sell your soul for a green card? Leave your decision in the comments. Team Daniel? Lisa's team? Or do you think they are both terrible people in their own way? Be harsh. Be honest. This story deserves nothing less. If you got this far, if this twisted, raw story of love, lies, and ambition hit you the same way it hit me, then like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe so you don't miss the next time reality TV shows us another side of the mess we all pretend isn't there. Thank you for watching. Be yourself. And maybe, just maybe, check your fiancé's marital status again before you give him your heart. Or your future. I'll see you in the next one.